94.
and MP&L would like to thank each of you, our valued customers, who despite being inconvenienced, did so much to help out during the recent ice storm. Your kindness and encouragement did not go unnoticed, and your patience and understanding will never be forgotten.
Hey everybody, this old Jerry Clower. If you'll call 1-800-530-7665 right now, you'll get to Leadco folks, and they'll talk to you about vinyl siding. They'll talk to you about all kind of patio rooms. They'll talk to you about helping improve your home. Dial them right now, 1-800-530-7665. That's Leadco. Oh, call them. I'm Jerry Clower.
Twin County Electric Power Association weathered the storm, but we couldn't have done it without our many friends, co-workers, volunteer utility crews, and especially the patience and support of our member customers. Pulling together, we all made a difference in the speedy restoration of service. For that, we'd like to say thank you. Twin County Electric Power Association, a Mississippi corporation owned, operated, and controlled by local Mississippians.
When we emerged from the darkness of our homes on the morning of February 10th, this is what we saw. From Tupelo to South Haven to Rolling Fork, everywhere you looked, all you saw was ice, downed power lines, and trees completely stripped of their branches. Shock rippled through the entire delta. It was worse than what we had ever expected, and by far more disastrous than the last major ice storm that struck in 1973. We were in a deep freeze. Communications were almost non-existent. Meeting basic human needs would require us to call on all our pioneering instinct just to survive. Water service was interrupted. Electric stoves were of no use. Many telephones were dead. We watched in utter disbelief as freezing rain continued to fall all day on Thursday, thickening the layer of ice already surrounding us.
I could not believe what had happened, and I immediately went out into the town and looking at it, and I just could not believe it. I did not even recognize the city of Greenville. In places I had been many a time before, I somehow got lost. I could not detect where I was at. So shock and unbelief would be the words, I guess, would be to describe it the best.
The most frightening sight was the number of downed power lines and snapped utility poles. Candles and kerosene attempted to light our way. This was literally the Delta's darkest hour.
They were prepared that Wednesday the 9th, before the ice storm, as we listened to weather, as we gassed up, as we fueled up, as we called in, everyone off vacation. They worked the entire night. They worked the entire day of the 10th. And most of them worked all of the night of the 10th. And it was not until the day of the 11th that they had any relief. Most of them had worked 50 plus straight hours before we had any outside help. They're not just courageous, but they led the charge.
Residents throughout the Delta scrambled to area grocery stores operating without electricity or on generators to stock up on food that could be eaten with little or no preparation. Outdoor grilling took on a new popularity, and bottled water became a precious commodity. When one area water distributor opened its doors on Friday morning, a line quickly formed, and almost as quickly the supply was diminished. While still in a daze, Delta residents tried to take care of their families and each other. Governor Kirk Fordyce tried for 2 days to get to the Delta to see firsthand the damage and devastation. He arrived on the Sunday after the storm hit.
As far as we can tell, there's no question this is the worst ice storm to ever hit Mississippi, and we've had several over the last few years, but nothing as extensive as this. Real assistance and the real power that comes out in any emergency situation in Mississippi is Mississippians helping each other.
While the governor spoke of the spirit of the people of Mississippi, it was evident the residents of the Delta would pull through this. They would not let Mother Nature defeat her. The true spirit of the Delta would prove once again to be too strong.
The argument will rage for years on which areas of the Delta were the hardest hit. Was it Greenville? Was it Cleveland or Clarksdale or the rural areas? I guess it all depended on how soon power was restored to those areas. There are rural areas still without power to this day. Our Jim Thompson was our eyes and our ears for some of the hardest hit areas.
In Clarksdale, Ice Storm 94 started with excitement. After all, an ice storm is about the same as a snowstorm, isn't it?
Well, we've been going at it ever since midnight last night. Really don't know how long it's going to be. Looks like it's going to be a while.
The problem is not that the street department isn't getting to the problems simply keep growing.
Yeah, since we came to work at 7 o'clock, trees instead of breaking, and faster we get them out the street, they break right behind.
By day 2, Clarksdale residents had looked around enough to realize that this was a real disaster. It seemed almost every tree had severe damage, and there seemed to be hardly a telephone pole or light pole left standing. In day 2, there was no water, no lights, and in most cases, no telephone.
I spent the night locked up in my den with just a fireplace going and a lot of covers and sleeping bags and everything going, and was up most of the night out in the yard getting wood to put on there, but all in all, we made it pretty well.
Much worse than the one that happened here in '79, here in this city, where the city is completely paralyzed. Our utilities are a shamble, our water mains are broken, and we think that it's probably going to take maybe about 10 days to 2 weeks to get our city going again.
Light and Water Manager Marvin Caraway gave attention to the most urgent needs first, the hospital and the nursing homes. The rest would have to wait.
Long-range picture, we're probably primary-wise, not service-wise for houses, but primary-wise where we can start working services, we're probably looking 3 weeks bare minimum.
Cleveland may or may not have been the worst hit by the ice storm, but there's little doubt they were worst hit by the gougers. The military came in to protect property. Attorney General Mike Moore sent in men to protect those making emergency purchases. But Cleveland residents looked with hope to the future and with some relief to the past.
Hopefully the trees will come back alive this spring and be ready for next year.
When this one came down, we weren't here, but the big branches just kept hitting the kitchen all night, and we were really running for cover.
But across the Delta, everyone was making the best of it. In Drew,
we are without power of any type. Our complete city is in shambles. We don't have any place in the city that would be a good place to be right now. Most people are taking it in good stride.
In Ruleville,
for a couple of days, we couldn't get out. We couldn't make any outside calls other than within the city of Greenville. We have a volunteer communication system set up here now to take care of that.
In Tutwiler,
Looking pretty good. We got all our wells working, and FEMA sent us generators down here, and we got our lift station working, and now we're starting on the cleanup crew, and Parchment has sent a crew in today.
Parchment had its own problems with a population of approximately 10,000 people overall, but they also reached out to a number of communities stretching all the way from Tunica to Greenville.
We have some 447 inmate work crews that are out today working in the community.
And just as things started looking better, rain was more than an inconvenience.
It's rough, and its long hours is taking a toll now, that's all. Things do happen a little more often that you wouldn't want to happen, but all in all, I'd say it's still good. Everybody's got high spirits, they're working hard. Everybody's working hard.
One thing missing during the entire crisis was the attention of the national press. Agriculture Secretary Mike Espy's appearance in Lyon helped some. This is Mike Espy's own backyard. After all, his brother is mayor of Clarksdale. But it does help to see things firsthand, and now he's seen the ice disaster of 1994.
I'm standing in the pecan orchard of Bill Heaton, someone I've known, someone I've worked with for years and years. And so I'm particularly touched and challenged.
An appearance in the Delta by the top REA official helped.
FEMA has been extremely helpful. They've been on the ground early. We're meeting with them. I'm going to meet with them strictly to make sure that the agencies are coordinated.
The customer, consumer, member owners of these cooperatives have shown extraordinary patience and good humor in these difficult times. It's not easy to be without electric lights, and certainly not for several weeks at a time.
But as we celebrate the end to Ice Storm 94, one thing to remember is that there are still people like these in South Coahoma County that still don't have power.
Before we got the generator, it was like diving in the river in Michigan, naked.
Most of the hardest hit area north of Highway 82 is back in service, but there will be those out of power for several weeks yet.
When we come back, meteorologist Doug Higgins will trace the origins of this freak of Mother Nature we call Ice Storm 94.
It was 100 years ago that the King's Daughters Hospital first opened its doors, making a firm commitment to serve the people of the Delta. Since then, that promise to provide health care in his name has been kept. Through flood, epidemic, and war, King's Daughters Hospital has been there. Things have changed over the last century, but the commitment remains the same. Now, with the latest in health care technology and caring people who treat you like family, you can relax knowing that your health care is in the hands of an old friend. The King's Daughters Hospital, still growing after a century of serving.
Twin County Electric Power Association weathered the storm, but we couldn't have done it without our many friends, co-workers, volunteer utility crews, and especially the patience and support of our member customers. Pulling together, we all made a difference in the speedy restoration of service. For that, we'd like to say thank you. Twin County Electric Power Association, a Mississippi corporation owned, operated, and controlled by local Mississippians.
Look, just
fax it.
Somewhere between where you are,
If you don't get that part up here, I'm going to lose a month's work.
and where you want to be,
I don't care if it takes all night.
there's a connection.
I'll be here all night.
Hi, Dad. Yeah, I understand. Really?
Cellular South.
Dad, I'm glad you called.
I'm glad I could.
It's South.
Entergy and MP&L would like to thank each of you, our valued customers, who despite being inconvenienced, did so much to help out during the recent ice storm. Your kindness and encouragement did not go unnoticed, and your patience and understanding will never be forgotten.
As you might expect, Wednesday, February 9th turned out to be a history-making day for the Delta. But right now, I'll try to explain to you some of the weather conditions that helped to produce Ice Storm 94. Showers and thunderstorms had already hit the Delta by mid-Wednesday afternoon, while over in Arkansas, they already began reporting sleet and freezing rain. With a possible ice storm threatening, the National Weather Service issued an ice storm warning for the northern half of Mississippi. And just after 8 o'clock that evening, the freezing rain had begun. Ice Storm 94 was born. Here's why freezing rain takes place. Freezing rain starts out as snow high in the atmosphere. As the snow falls to Earth, it encounters a warm layer of air, causing the snow to melt. The rain then falls through a shallow layer of cold air, which has cooled surface temperatures to freezing. As the rain falls on trees, cars, and power lines, layers of ice form. Fortunately for the Delta, our roadways were not made hazardous from the ice. The ground was warm enough to keep the rain from freezing. Had the surface temperature dropped only a few degrees, though, our streets would have been treacherous sheets of ice. Curiously, the ice storm seemed to stop just short of Greenwood. The simple explanation is that freezing rain occurs only where temperatures are at or below freezing. The line of freezing temperatures stopped just west of Greenwood. Thus, Greenwood got rain, while just to the west, areas turned to ice. Ice storms rarely last for more than a few hours. However, Ice Storm 94 raged an unusual 33 hours.
As the front continued across the area, temperatures fell, and of course, over the top of that, we had other weather systems in the upper levels moving across, producing rainfall, precipitation in the form of sleet, freezing rain, and snow.
3 separate upper-level storm systems cause ice to accumulate from 1 to 6 inches on cars, trees, and power lines. Most of the Delta's trees and power lines fell under the weight of the ice. It has been estimated that an evergreen tree, 50 feet high with an average width of 20 feet, may be coated with up to 5 tons of ice during a severe ice storm. So it's no wonder that few trees and power lines were left standing after the storm. A wicked combination of freezing temperatures, abundant moisture, high winds, and a stationary storm system were the perfect ingredients to form the Delta's worst ice storm in recent history.
Within hours of the storm's first assault, emergency crews were mobilized with one mission in mind, and that was the safety and security of Delta residents.
Even as the ice began building on branches Wednesday night, city, county emergency, and power crews knew they were in for a long siege. They began organizing